Okay, more than 200 Republicans who worked for three of the most recent GOP nominees prior to former President Trump are now endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris, yes, the Democrat. In a letter, the 238 Republicans, which includes staffers from former President George W. Bush's White House and Senators John McCain and Mitt Romney's presidential campaigns, urge more moderate Republicans and independents to, quote, take a brave stand once more. The group builds on a smaller set of about 150 Republicans who pledged to support then-candidate Biden back in 2020. And it comes after a Democratic convention that included conservatives like former Congressman Adam Kinzinger speaking to common values that transcend party. The letter further states, quote, of course, we have plenty of honest, ideological disagreements with Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. That's to be expected. The alternative, however, is simply untenable. At home, another 4 years of Donald Trump's chaotic leadership, this time focused on advancing the dangerous goals of Project 2025, will hurt real, everyday people and weaken our sacred institutions. Richard, which are the Republicans who have not stood up yet, who served in the Trump administration, who could actually make a difference in terms of persuading those very few unpersuadable voters who are left? Do you expect any more of them to stand up between now and November?
I mean, there's the former vice president who has, shall we say, a certain physical and political incentive to stand up, given how he was.
Do you think he's going to do it?
No. Look, I think if people were going to stand up, they've had now, shall we say, several years to do it. So I think several people are simply not. And I also wonder at this point, disagree with me if you will, how much of a difference it would make.
Yeah.
It's certainly not going to shake Trump's base. I'm not sure a lot of these people would necessarily influence the independents or a sort of small number of voters in swing states. So it'll be interesting to see. I just find it, it's fascinating, Hattie, how many of the people who work with him most closely, who know him best, have come out against him. And that to me is a stunning indictment.
Yeah, I mean, no questions. Those who know him the best have decided not to back him, Eugene. But Adam Kinzinger, Republican, spoke at the Democratic convention last week, gave a good speech. And Tim Miller, our friend from MSNBC and The Bulwark, noted, though, he applauded him. But, where were the rest? We know that some of these have spoken out against him privately. But where was John Kelly? Where was Rex Tillerson? Where was Mike Pence? Where was George W. Bush? Where was Liz Cheney? The list goes on and on. People who have privately and sometimes publicly made it clear that they disagree with Donald Trump. They would never vote for him again. But there's always been something holding them back to take that center stage, whether it's political ambition or the like, to actually forcefully not just denounce Trump, but back Harris. Do you see any of that changing? And to Richard's point, does it even matter?
I don't see it changing. I mean, if every prominent Republican who inwardly, secretly despises Donald Trump and thinks he's dangerous for the country and the world and had spoken at the Democratic convention, there wouldn't have been any room for Democrats to speak. I mean, it's not like there's a shortage of these people. But it's very clear at this point, after years, that many of them are not going to come out. They're going to remain in exile or in the closet, I guess. Does it make a difference that this group came out? I think just very marginally. I think in so far as they're trying to create a permission structure for establishment Republican voters who really don't want to vote for either Trump or Harris to just go ahead and vote for Harris. I don't think there are necessarily a lot of people who are going to be pushed off that fence to actually voting for Harris. But, tight election, and so small numbers can make a big difference.
But you know what, Hattie? I think there's two ways that I've seen Republicans in this Trump era go at the former president while also trying to preserve republicanism in the way that they remember it. You've got people like Adam Kinzinger who are taking the outside approach, appearing at a Democratic convention, trying to create what Eugene rightly calls out as the permission structure structure to patriotically maintain your time as a conservative, but vote for small d democracy by voting for Kamala Harris. And then you've got people like Mike Pence, like Liz Cheney, some of the other names that we've mentioned here, who are never going to come out and disavow their party, in large part because they want to stay within it so that they can carry the future torch of it when Trump, if Trump is at the end of his political career, whether that's in 2024 or at some point in the future. There are two different ways that they're trying to go about this. And so I don't think we're going to see Mike Pence or Liz Cheney come out and endorse the Democrats and say, I am no longer a Republican. They want to stay within the party for a reason. They want to carry that torch forward.
Yeah, the voice I would like to hear is George W. Bush.
I think you're right.
And I do think that is a voice that actually could make some sort of a difference. I don't know that any of the others could, but it's possible that George W. Bush could do.